The dust kicked up in clouds around Olivia Griffin's boots as she reached for the front door of her family's ranch house, her carpet bag already packed and hidden beneath the porch steps, when three men on horseback materialized from the morning haze, blocking the road that led away from everything she had ever known. It was July 1875 in Oregon City, Oregon, and at 22 years old, she had finally gathered the courage to leave her father's iron grip and start a life of her own in Portland, where her aunt had promised her work at the dress shop. Her father had been drinking again last night, his temper flaring hot and dangerous over supper when she mentioned wanting to visit the mercantile alone, and she knew if she did not leave now, she would be trapped forever in this lonely house with a man whose love had twisted into something dark and possessive after her mother's death 5 years prior. The three men sat atop their horses with an unsettling stillness, their faces shadowed by wide-brimmed hats, and Olivia felt her heart sink into her stomach as she recognized the middle one as Frank Sutton, her father's foreman, and the man her father had decided she would marry despite her repeated refusals. Frank was 43, mean when he drank, and had already buried 2 wives under suspicious circumstances that the sheriff conveniently overlooked because Frank's brother sat on the town council. She clutched her shawl tighter around her shoulders and tried to keep her voice steady. "I am going to town, Frank. Move aside." "Your father says you are not leaving this property, Miss Olivia," Frank called out, his voice carrying that smooth, threatening tone she had learned to fear. "Says you have been getting ideas above your station. We are here to make sure you stay put until you come to your senses about our arrangement." The other 2 men were ranch hands she recognized, loyal to Frank and to the wages her father paid them, and Olivia knew she could not get past them alone. She felt tears of frustration burning behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. She had been planning this escape for 3 months, saving every penny she could hide, writing letters to her aunt in secret, and now these men sat between her and freedom like vultures waiting for something to die. "I am a grown woman and I will go where I please," she said, lifting her chin even as her hands trembled. "My father has no legal right to keep me prisoner." Frank laughed, a sound like gravel scraping against metal. "Legal right? Girl, your father owns half this county. What he says is law around here, and he says you are staying home until you agree to be my wife. Now get back inside before I have to dismount and escort you myself." Olivia took a step backward, her mind racing through options that did not exist. She could scream, but the nearest neighbor was 3 miles away. She could run back into the house and bar the door, but they would simply wait her out, and her father would be home by evening. She could try to slip away through the back, but they had probably positioned more men there, knowing she might attempt exactly that. The morning sun beat down mercilessly, already promising another scorching summer day, and she felt sweat trickling down her spine beneath her simple cotton dress. The sound of hoofbeats approaching from the east made all 4 of them turn their heads. A single rider was coming fast, his horse a rangy paint that moved with the easy grace of an animal that had covered countless miles. As he drew closer, Olivia could make out a tall figure in worn leather chaps, a dark hat pulled low, and a red bandana tied around his neck. He had a rifle in a scabbard on his saddle and a confident way of sitting his horse that suggested he knew how to use it. The stranger slowed as he approached the standoff, his sharp eyes taking in the scene with quick intelligence. He looked to be around 26 or 27, with sun-darkened skin and strong features that spoke of days spent outdoors. There was something steady about him, something calm and capable that made Olivia's racing heart slow just slightly. "Morning," the stranger said pleasantly, nodding to the 3 men blocking the road. "Fine day for riding. You fellows seem to be blocking the lady's path, though. That does not strike me as very gentlemanly. Frank turned his horse slightly, his posture aggressive. This is private business, stranger. Keep riding. Well, now, I would do just that, the man said, his voice carrying a hint of amusement that did not quite hide the steel underneath. Except I have a problem with 3 armed men blocking a woman's way. Seems to me like she wants to pass and you are preventing her. That sits poorly with me. I said this is private business, Frank repeated, his hand dropping toward the gun at his hip. The lady is staying home on her father's orders. Move along before there is trouble. The stranger's eyes flicked to Olivia, and she saw kindness there mixed with something else, a barely contained anger at what he was witnessing. Miss, are these men keeping you here against your will? Olivia's throat felt tight, but she managed to nod. Yes. I am trying to leave, and they will not let me pass. My father has given them orders to keep me here until I agree to marry that one. She pointed at Frank, whose face darkened with rage. That is all I need to know, the stranger said quietly. He swung down from his horse with fluid grace and walked forward with purpose, his hand resting casually on the gun at his hip. The lady will be coming with me now. Everything happened very fast after that. Frank reached for his gun, but the stranger was faster, drawing and firing a shot that kicked up dust right between Frank's horse's hooves, making the animal rear and Frank scramble to stay in the saddle. The other 2 men reached for their weapons, but the stranger had already shifted his aim to cover them, his face calm but utterly serious. Next man who draws on me gets a bullet somewhere more permanent, he said, and there was no doubt in Olivia's mind that he meant every word. Now, I am going to collect the lady, and we are going to ride out of here. You are going to let us pass, and then you are going to tell her father that his daughter is gone and will not be coming back. If any of you follow us, I will take it as a threat to the lady's safety and respond accordingly. Are we clear? Frank's face was purple with fury, but he slowly raised his hands away from his gun. You have no idea who you are crossing, stranger. Her father will hunt you down. Then I will deal with him when the time comes, the stranger said, but for now the lady is leaving. He glanced at Olivia, his voice gentling. Miss, do you have belongings you need? Under the porch, Olivia said quickly, her voice shaking with a mixture of fear and wild hope. A carpet bag. Get it quickly, please. Olivia ran to the porch steps, her hands fumbling as she retrieved her bag from its hiding place. It held everything precious to her, the few pieces of jewelry her mother had left her, 2 dresses, some undergarments, and the small bundle of money she had saved. When she straightened, the stranger was still covering the 3 men, his gun steady. Can you ride? He asked her. Yes. Then get on my horse. We are leaving now. Olivia did not hesitate. She hurried to the paint horse, which stood calm despite the tension, and managed to pull herself into the saddle with her bag clutched in one hand. The stranger backed toward his horse slowly, his gun never wavering, and then he swung up behind her in one smooth motion, his arm coming around her waist to steady her as he took the reins. Ride hard, boys, if you feel lucky, he said conversationally, and then he spurred the horse into motion, and they were thundering down the road with the wind tearing at Olivia's hair, and her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. They rode for nearly an hour before the stranger slowed the paint to a walk, guiding the horse off the main road and into a stand of pine trees where a small creek burbled over smooth stones. Olivia's body ached from the hard ride, and she realized she was shaking all over, the shock of what had just happened finally catching up with her. The stranger dismounted first and then helped her down with gentle hands, steadying her when her knees threatened to buckle. Easy now, he said quietly. "You are safe. Let us get some water in you and let the horse rest a bit." Olivia sank down onto a fallen log, her carpet bag clutched against her chest, and stared at this man who had appeared out of nowhere to rescue her from a nightmare. "Who are you?" she whispered. He crouched by the creek, filling his canteen and bringing it to her. "Name is Preston Irving. I am a horse trader mostly. I was heading into Oregon City to meet with a rancher about some stock when I came across your situation." "Preston Irving," she repeated, taking the canteen with shaking hands and drinking deeply. The water was cold and sweet, and it helped clear the fog from her mind. "Thank you. I do not know what would have happened if you had not come along." "I have a pretty good idea, and it would not have been anything good," Preston said, his jaw tight. "A woman has the right to go where she pleases. What your father and those men were doing, that is kidnapping, pure and simple." Olivia laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "My father does not see it that way. He thinks he owns me like he owns his cattle. Ever since my mother died, he has become someone I do not recognize. And Frank Sutton—" She shuddered. "Frank has been circling like a vulture for 2 years now, and my father decided we would marry whether I wanted to or not." Preston's face darkened. "Frank Sutton. I have heard that name. He has a reputation in these parts, and none of it good." "He buried 2 wives already," Olivia said quietly. "Everyone knows he beat them, but no one does anything because his brother has power in town. I would rather die than marry him." "You will not have to," Preston said firmly. "Where were you headed when they stopped you?" "Portland. My aunt has a dress shop there, and she promised me work. I have been planning to leave for months, but my father watches me constantly. Today was the first time he left early for town, and I thought I could slip away before anyone noticed." Preston was quiet for a moment, studying her with those steady eyes. "Portland is a good choice. Big enough that you can disappear if you need to. But those men are going to go straight to your father, and he is going to come looking. We need to put some serious distance between you and Oregon City." "We?" Olivia looked at him in surprise. "You have already done so much." "I cannot ask you to abandon your business." "You are not asking. I am offering," Preston said simply. "I am not going to rescue you from those men only to leave you on your own when they come hunting. Besides, the rancher I was meeting can wait. This is more important." Something warm unfurled in Olivia's chest, a feeling she had not experienced in so long she almost did not recognize it as hope. "Why are you helping me? You do not even know me." Preston smiled for the first time, and it transformed his serious face into something warmer, more approachable. "My mother raised me to believe that when you see someone in trouble, you help them. Simple as that. And I do not like bullies, especially ones who think they can intimidate women. So if you will have me as an escort, I will see you safely to Portland." Olivia felt tears spilling down her cheeks, and she did not bother to wipe them away. "Yes, thank you. I can pay you something, not much, but I have a little money saved." "Keep your money," Preston said gently. "You are going to need it to start your new life. Now we should keep moving. I want to make it to Salem by nightfall. There is a decent hotel there where you can get a proper rest, and we can figure out our next move." They rode through the afternoon, Preston setting a steady pace that ate up the miles without exhausting the horse. He had given Olivia his bedroll to sit on to make the ride more comfortable, and he kept up a steady stream of conversation that helped distract her from her worry about what her father might be doing. He told her about growing up on a small ranch in Montana, about losing his parents to fever when he was 19, about spending the last 8 years traveling through Oregon, Idaho, and Washington territories trading horses and occasionally doing ranch work when he needed extra money. "Do you ever want to settle down?" Olivia asked as they crested a hill that gave them a view of the Willamette Valley spreading out below, green and beautiful in the late afternoon light. Sometimes, Preston admitted. I think about getting a piece of land, building a house, maybe raising some horses. But I have not found the right place yet. Or maybe I have not found the right reason to stop moving. Something in his voice made Olivia glance back at him, and she found him looking at her with an expression she could not quite read. She felt her cheeks warm and quickly turned her attention back to the trail ahead. They reached Salem just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Preston took them to a modest hotel on a quiet street, and he paid for 2 rooms without comment. The proprietor, a plump woman with kind eyes, showed Olivia to a small but clean room on the 2nd floor. "You look like you have had quite a day, dear," the woman said sympathetically. "I will send up some hot water for washing and some supper. You rest yourself now." Alone in the room, Olivia sank onto the bed and let herself cry properly for the first time. She cried for the father she had lost to grief and anger, for the home that had become a prison, for the fear she had carried for so long. But she also cried with relief, because she was free, because she was safe, because a stranger with kind eyes and a steady hand had appeared when she needed him most. There was a knock at her door an hour later, after she had washed and changed into her other dress, and eaten the simple but delicious meal the proprietor had sent up. When she opened it, Preston stood there looking slightly uncomfortable, his hat in his hands. "I just wanted to check that you are all right," he said, "and to talk about tomorrow's plans if you are not too tired." "Please come in," Olivia said, stepping back. "I should thank you properly." "You saved my life today, Mr. Irving." "Preston, please," he said, remaining in the doorway. "And I am not sure it is proper for me to come into your room. Why do not we talk in the dining room downstairs? They have decent coffee." Olivia appreciated his consideration for her reputation even in these circumstances, and she followed him down to the hotel's small dining room. They settled at a corner table, and Preston ordered coffee for them both before turning his attention to her. "I have been thinking about your situation," he said. "Your father is going to look for you, and Portland is the obvious place. Your aunt's shop will be the first place he checks." Olivia's heart sank. "I had not thought of that, but where else can I go? I have no money for anything else and no other family." "Hear me out," Preston said, leaning forward. "I have a friend in Portland, a woman named Margaret Chen, who runs a boarding house. She is smart and tough, and she does not take kindly to men who mistreat women. If you stayed with her instead of your aunt, at least at first, your father might not find you right away. It would buy you time to figure out what you want to do. But my aunt is expecting me. She is the only family I have left who cares about me. You can still see your aunt, work at her shop if you want. Just do not live there. Make it harder for your father to track you down." Preston paused, his fingers drumming on the table. "I also think you should consider changing your name, at least temporarily. Olivia Griffin is going to be easy to find, but a different name, that gives you protection." Olivia considered this, her mind working through the implications. "You think he will really search that hard?" "From what you have told me about him, yes. And Frank Sutton struck me as the kind of man who does not like being crossed. I think you need to be careful, at least for a while, until they realize you are not coming back." The thought of changing her name, of hiding like a criminal when she had done nothing wrong, made anger flare hot in Olivia's chest. But she was also practical enough to recognize the wisdom in Preston's words. "All right, I will think of a different name to use. And I will stay at your friend's boarding house if she will have me." "She will," Preston said with confidence. "Margaret owes me a favor or two. I will write her a letter tonight and have it sent ahead by express. We should reach Portland by tomorrow evening if we leave at first light." They talked for another hour, making plans and contingencies, and Olivia found herself relaxing in Preston's presence. He was thoughtful and practical, but there was also a warmth to him that made her feel valued rather than like a burden. When they finally parted for the night, Olivia lay in her bed staring at the ceiling and marveling at how much her life had changed in a single day. The ride to Portland the next day was long but uneventful. Preston had borrowed a second horse from a friend of his in Salem, so Olivia had her own mount, a gentle mare that responded beautifully to her commands. They talked as they rode, and Olivia learned more about the man who had rescued her. He was 27, had never been married, loved good books and bad coffee, and had a dry sense of humor that made her laugh in spite of herself. "What about you?" Preston asked as they stopped to rest the horses beside a stream. "What do you want from life, Olivia?" "Besides getting away from your father and Frank Sutton." Olivia thought about this carefully. "I want to make my own choices. I want to work and earn my own money and not have to depend on any man for my survival. I want to maybe travel someday, see the ocean, visit San Francisco. I want to feel safe in my own home and go to sleep without worrying about what tomorrow will bring." She paused, feeling vulnerable. "Is that too much to ask?" "Not even a little bit," Preston said firmly. "Every person deserves those things, and you will have them. I will make sure of it." The way he said it, with such quiet conviction, made Olivia's heart flutter strangely in her chest. She found herself watching him as he tended to the horses, noting the capable way he moved, the gentleness in his hands, the strength in his shoulders. He was handsome, she realized, in a rugged, unpretentious way that appealed to her far more than the slick charm of the men who had courted her in Oregon City. They reached Portland as the sun was setting, the city sprawling and bustling compared to the smaller towns they had passed through. Preston guided them through the streets with easy familiarity, finally stopping in front of a large, well-kept house, painted a cheerful yellow with white trim. A sign in the front yard read, "Chen's Boarding House, respectable lodgings for ladies and gentlemen." A woman emerged from the front door before they could dismount, a small, elegant figure in a neat gray dress with her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun. Margaret Chen looked to be in her late 30s, and her face lit up with genuine pleasure when she saw Preston. "Preston Irving, you scoundrel," she called out in English touched with a soft accent. "You send me a telegram saying you need a favor and then show up on my doorstep the very next day. You know I cannot say no to you." Preston grinned and swung down from his horse, catching Margaret in a quick hug. "That is why I came to you, Maggie. This is Olivia Griffin, the woman I told you about." Margaret's expression turned serious as she studied Olivia with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Welcome, my dear. Preston's telegram said you needed a safe place to stay, no questions asked. You have it here. Come inside, both of you. You must be exhausted." The boarding house was warm and welcoming inside, with comfortable furniture and the smell of something delicious cooking in the kitchen. Margaret led them to a cozy sitting room and poured them tea while Preston explained the situation in more detail. Margaret listened without interrupting, her face growing harder as he described what had happened. "Men like your father and this Frank Sutton, they are cowards," Margaret said when Preston finished. "They only feel powerful when they are controlling someone weaker. But you are not weak, Olivia. You found the courage to leave, and that takes tremendous strength." She reached across the table and squeezed Olivia's hand. "You are safe here. I have dealt with men looking for runaway wives or daughters before. They do not intimidate me." "Thank you," Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. "I do not know how I will ever repay all this kindness." "You repay it by living well and being happy," Margaret said simply. "Now, let me show you to your room. I have a lovely one on the 3rd floor with a view of the garden." As Margaret led Olivia upstairs, Preston called after them. "Olivia, I will come by tomorrow to check on you if that is all right. Make sure you are settled." Olivia looked back at him, this man who had turned her world upside down in the best possible way. "I would like that very much." The room Margaret showed her was better than anything Olivia had expected, with a comfortable bed, a small writing desk, and windows that looked out over a beautiful garden full of roses and lavender. After Margaret left, Olivia unpacked her few belongings and sat on the bed, trying to process everything that had happened. She was free. She was in Portland. She was safe. And it was all because of Preston Irving. Preston did come by the next day and the day after that and the day after that. He helped Olivia navigate the city, showing her where the markets were, which streets were safe to walk alone, how to take the trolley to the business district where her aunt's dress shop was located. Olivia met with her Aunt Caroline, a brisk, kind woman who was horrified by what had happened, and immediately offered her a job at the shop. They agreed that Olivia would use the name Olivia Grant in public, at least for now, to make it harder for her father to track her down. As the days turned into weeks, Olivia found herself settling into a new life that felt almost miraculous in its normalcy. She worked at the dress shop 6 days a week, learning the trade and discovering she had a real talent for design. She made friends with the other boarders at Margaret's house, a collection of young working women who shared meals and stories and laughter. And she saw Preston almost every day. He had delayed his travel plans, he said, to make sure she was truly settled and safe. But as July turned into August, Olivia began to suspect there might be another reason he was staying in Portland. She caught him watching her sometimes with an expression that made her breath catch, a tenderness mixed with longing that mirrored the feelings growing in her own heart. They were walking through the park one warm evening in late August, when Preston finally said what had been hanging unspoken between them for weeks. They had stopped by a fountain, and Preston was tossing pebbles into the water with studied casualness. "Olivia, I need to talk to you about something," he said, not looking at her. "I have been staying in Portland much longer than I planned. I am missing opportunities, disappointing clients. I should move on, get back to my business." Olivia's heart sank, even though she had known this moment was coming. "Of course, you have already done so much for me. I cannot expect you to stay forever." "That is the thing," Preston said, finally meeting her eyes. "I do not want to leave. And that is a problem because I do not think my staying is fair to you." "Fair to me? What do you mean?" Preston ran a hand through his hair, looking more uncertain than Olivia had ever seen him. "I have feelings for you, Olivia, strong feelings. They started that first day when I saw you standing up to those men, and they have only grown stronger every day since. But you just escaped from men who wanted to control your life and make your choices for you. The last thing you need is another man complicating things or making you feel obligated." Olivia's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he must be able to hear it. "Preston, do you think I have been blind to what is happening between us? Do you think I have not noticed the way you look at me, or the way I look for you in every crowd? Do you think these feelings only go one way?" Hope flared in Preston's eyes. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying that you saved me, yes, but that is not why I care about you. I care about you because you are kind and funny and strong. I care about you because you make me feel safe but also brave. I care about you because when I think about my future now, I cannot imagine it without you in it." Olivia stepped closer to him, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I am saying that I have fallen in love with you, Preston Irving, and if you leave Portland, you will be breaking my heart." Preston's face transformed with joy, and he reached out to cup her face in his hands with exquisite gentleness. "I love you too, Olivia Griffin. I think I started loving you the moment I saw you standing on that porch refusing to back down even though you were terrified. You are the bravest, most beautiful woman I have ever met, and I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you always feel as free and safe as you deserve to feel." When he kissed her, it was soft and sweet and perfect, and Olivia felt like she was flying. All the fear and pain of the past months melted away, replaced by a joy so pure and strong it brought tears to her eyes. They stood by the fountain as the sun set, holding each other and making promises about the future they would build together. But their happiness was interrupted 3 weeks later when Olivia's father finally tracked her down. She was working at the dress shop one afternoon when her Aunt Caroline came rushing back from the front room, her face pale with alarm. "Olivia, your father is here. He is demanding to see you, and he has Frank Sutton with him. I told them you were not here, but I do not think he believed me." Fear clamped down on Olivia's chest, the old familiar terror she had thought she had left behind. "What do I do?" "Go out the back," Caroline said quickly. "Go to Preston. He will know what to do." Olivia grabbed her shawl and slipped out the back entrance of the shop, her heart racing as she hurried through the alleys toward the livery stable where Preston was looking at some horses he might buy. She could hear shouting behind her, and she realized with horror that her father or Frank must have seen her leaving. She ran faster, her skirts tangling around her legs, her breath coming in gasps. She burst into the livery stable, startling Preston and the stable owner. "They found me," she gasped. "My father and Frank, they are at the shop and they saw me leave." Preston's face went hard and he immediately moved to her side, his hand going to the gun he always wore. "Get behind me. Mr. Peterson, I apologize, but we may have some trouble here." The stable owner, a grizzled man in his 60s, shook his head. "No trouble that I cannot handle, son. I fought in the war. I know how to deal with bullies." Olivia's father stormed into the stable moments later, his face red with fury, Frank Sutton right behind him looking smug and dangerous. Her father was a big man, tall and broad-shouldered, and he had always used his size to intimidate. He pointed a shaking finger at Olivia. "You ungrateful girl," he roared. "How dare you run away from your home and disgrace me like this? You are coming back with me right now, and you are going to marry Frank like you should have done months ago." "I am not going anywhere with you," Olivia said, trying to keep her voice steady even though she was shaking. "I am 22 years old, father. You have no legal right to force me to do anything. I am your father and you will obey me," her father shouted, starting toward her. But Preston stepped directly into his path, his hand resting meaningfully on his gun. "The lady has made her wishes clear," Preston said coldly. "She is not going with you. Now turn around and leave before this gets ugly." Her father stared at Preston with contempt. "You must be the saddle tramp who kidnapped my daughter. I should have you arrested." "I did not kidnap anyone. I helped a woman who was being held against her will." "There is a big difference, and any judge would see it that way. Now, I am going to say this one more time. Leave. Olivia is not going with you." Frank Sutton stepped forward, his hand on his gun. "Maybe we need to teach you some manners, boy. Show you what happens when you interfere in other people's business." The tension in the stable ratcheted up dangerously, and Olivia felt sick with fear. She did not want violence, did not want Preston to get hurt because of her. But before anyone could make a move, the stable owner stepped forward holding a shotgun that had appeared from somewhere behind the counter. "I think you gentlemen should listen to the man," Mr. Peterson said calmly. "This is my property, and I do not want trouble here. The young lady does not want to go with you, so you need to leave. Right now." Her father looked between Preston, the stable owner, and Olivia, his face purpling with rage. "This is not over," he spat. "You are still my daughter, Olivia, and you will do as I say." "No, father, I will not," Olivia said, finding her courage. "I am done being afraid of you. I am done living my life according to your demands. I love you, or I loved the man you used to be before Mother died. But I will not marry Frank Sutton, and I will not come home. That part of my life is over." Something in her father's face crumpled, just for a moment, and Olivia saw grief and confusion there beneath the anger. But then his expression hardened again, and he turned on his heel and stalked out of the stable, Frank following with a last menacing look at Preston. When they were gone, Olivia's legs gave out and she would have fallen if Preston had not caught her. She clung to him, shaking with reaction while he held her tight and murmured reassurances into her hair. "It is all right," he said softly. "You did so well. I am so proud of you." "He will come back," Olivia whispered. "He will not give up this easily." "Maybe," Preston said, "but every time we will face him together. You are not alone anymore, Olivia. You have me, you have Margaret, you have your aunt. You have people who love you and will protect you." "He cannot take that away." Mr. Peterson cleared his throat. "Miss, if you do not mind some advice from an old man, you should talk to the sheriff. Explain the situation, make sure there is a record of your father's threats. That way, if he tries anything, there is documentation." Preston nodded. "That is smart. Olivia, what do you think?" Olivia took a deep breath and straightened, pulling herself together. "Yes, let us go to the sheriff. I am done running and hiding. If my father wants a fight, I will give him one, but I will do it the right way with the law on my side." They went to the sheriff's office that afternoon, and Olivia told her story to a sympathetic deputy who took careful notes and assured her that any attempt by her father to forcibly remove her from Portland would be treated as kidnapping. He also suggested she might want to file for legal emancipation from her father, even at her age, just to make it absolutely clear that he had no authority over her. Over the next few weeks, Olivia did exactly that, working with a lawyer her Aunt Caroline recommended. Her father made 2 more attempts to confront her, once at the boarding house and once outside the dress shop, but each time Preston was there, and each time her father was forced to retreat. The third time, the sheriff himself intervened and warned her father that if he continued to harass his adult daughter, he would face charges. Slowly, as summer turned to fall, the harassment stopped. Olivia heard through her aunt's connections that her father had returned to Oregon City, his pride wounded but his fury finally burning out. Frank Sutton had apparently moved on to courting another young woman, a rancher's daughter with a large dowry, and Olivia felt only pity for the poor girl. With the threat of her father finally receding, Olivia allowed herself to truly embrace her new life. She threw herself into her work at the dress shop, where her designs were becoming popular with Portland's fashionable ladies. She made deep friendships with the women at the boarding house, particularly a schoolteacher named Ruth and a bookkeeper named Jane. And she fell more deeply in love with Preston with every passing day. He had decided to base himself in Portland, taking on contracts to supply horses to the army and various ranches in the region. It meant he still traveled sometimes, but he always came back to her, and Olivia discovered that she did not mind his absences because they made their reunions all the sweeter. On a crisp October evening, Preston took her to dinner at one of Portland's finest restaurants. They had been together for nearly 4 months now, and Olivia could not imagine her life without him. After dinner, he walked her along the waterfront where ships rocked gently at their moorings and the lights of the city glittered on the water. "Olivia," Preston said, taking both her hands in his, "these past months with you have been the happiest of my life. You have changed everything for me. Before I met you, I was just drifting, going from place to place without any real purpose. But you have given me a reason to build something permanent, to think about the future." Olivia's heart began to race. "Preston, what are you saying?" he smiled, that warm, beautiful smile that never failed to make her melt, and dropped to one knee right there on the waterfront with people passing by and ships creaking in the background. "I am saying that I love you with everything I am. I am saying that I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy and keeping you safe and laughing at your terrible jokes. I am saying, Olivia Griffin, will you marry me?" Olivia pulled him to his feet, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, yes, of course I will marry you. I love you so much, Preston." He kissed her there in front of everyone, a kiss full of joy and promise, and Olivia heard people applauding around them. When they finally broke apart, Preston pulled a simple gold ring from his pocket, a delicate band with a small diamond that caught the light beautifully. "It was my mother's," he said softly as he slipped it onto her finger. "She would have loved you." They were married 6 weeks later in a simple ceremony at a small church in Portland. Margaret Chen stood up as Olivia's matron of honor, and Preston's friend from Salem, a rancher named Thomas Hart, served as his best man. Aunt Caroline cried through the entire ceremony, and afterward there was a lovely dinner at a hotel where their friends toasted their happiness and future. Olivia had sent an invitation to her father, though she had not really expected him to come. He did not, but 2 days before the wedding, a package arrived at the boarding house addressed to her. Inside was her mother's wedding dress, carefully preserved, and a short note in her father's handwriting that simply said, "Your mother would have wanted you to have this. Be happy." It was not an apology, and it did not erase the pain he had caused, but it was something. Olivia wore her mother's dress on her wedding day, and she felt her mother's presence like a blessing as she walked down the aisle toward Preston, who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. They spent their wedding night at the same hotel where they had had their reception, and Olivia discovered that the passion between them was just as strong and true as the friendship and love they had built over the past months. Preston was gentle and patient, making sure she felt cherished and safe, and Olivia had never felt more perfectly complete than she did falling asleep in his arms that night. Preston had surprised her by buying a small piece of land about 10 miles outside Portland, a beautiful property with rolling hills, a stream, and a view of Mount Hood in the distance. They spent the first year of their marriage building a house there, a sturdy, comfortable home with large windows that let in the light and a porch where they could sit in the evenings and watch the sun set over the valley. Preston continued his horse trading business, and it prospered under his steady management. Olivia continued working at her aunt's dress shop, though now she focused more on designing than on day-to-day shop work. Caroline was talking about expanding, maybe opening a second location, and she wanted Olivia to be her partner in the venture. Their second year of marriage brought both joy and sorrow. In February, they received word that Olivia's father had died suddenly of a heart attack. Olivia grieved for the man he had been before her mother's death, for the loving father of her childhood, even though she could not forgive the man he had become. Preston held her through her tears and never once suggested she should not mourn. When the estate was settled, Olivia inherited the ranch that had been her prison. She and Preston talked long and hard about what to do with it, and finally decided to sell most of the land but keep the house. They hired a family to live there and maintain it, and Olivia visited occasionally, making peace with the memories, both good and bad, that lived in those rooms. But the sorrow of losing her father was balanced by the joy of discovering in late spring that Olivia was pregnant. She had been feeling tired and queasy for weeks before she finally admitted to herself what it might mean. And when the doctor confirmed her suspicions, she hurried home to tell Preston immediately. His reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure delight, and then immediately apologized and set her down carefully as if she might break. "Are you all right? Should you be on your feet? Do you need to sit down?" Olivia laughed at his sudden nervous energy. "I am fine, Preston. Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. I am healthy and strong, and I am going to be fine." He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach, his eyes full of wonder. "We are going to have a baby, a child, our child." "Yes," Olivia said softly, covering his hand with hers. "We are going to be parents. Are you ready for that? With you, I am ready for anything." The pregnancy progressed normally, and Olivia worked at the dress shop until she was 7 months along and could no longer easily reach the sewing machine. Preston was comically overprotective, constantly asking if she needed anything, if she was comfortable, if she should be resting more. Margaret Chen found his hovering hilarious and often shooed him away so Olivia could have some peace. Their son was born on a cold January morning in 1877, after a labor that was long but uncomplicated. Preston held Olivia's hand through all of it, and when the midwife finally placed their baby in Olivia's arms, they both cried at the miracle of him. He was perfect, with a shock of dark hair and his father's steady eyes, and they named him Thomas after Preston's best friend and William after Olivia's grandfather. Thomas William Irving was a happy, healthy baby who thrived under the loving attention of his parents and their extended circle of friends. Margaret Chen was a doting honorary grandmother, and Aunt Caroline spoiled him shamelessly. Even Ruth and Jane from the boarding house visited regularly, bringing books for the baby's future library and offering to babysit whenever Olivia needed a break. As Thomas grew from baby to toddler, Olivia and Preston settled into the rhythms of family life. Their home was full of laughter and love, and Olivia often marveled at how different her life was from what it might have been if Preston had not appeared that July morning to rescue her. She would have been married to Frank Sutton, probably beaten down and miserable, trapped in a life of fear and submission. Instead, she had freedom, love, meaningful work, and a family of her own. When Thomas was 3, Olivia gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Catherine Rose after both of their mothers. Catherine was a quieter baby than Thomas had been, more thoughtful and observant, and she had her mother's curly auburn hair and stubborn chin. Thomas was enchanted with his baby sister and took his role as big brother very seriously, always wanting to help feed her or rock her cradle. The years passed in a blur of happiness. Preston's business continued to grow, and he eventually took on 2 partners to help manage the increasing demand. Olivia and Caroline opened their second dress shop, and Olivia's designs became sought after throughout Oregon. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable, and more importantly, they were happy. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Preston took Olivia back to the waterfront where he had proposed. They stood in the same spot, older now, with the experiences of a decade written on their faces, and Preston took her hands just as he had that night. "Thank you," he said softly. "Thank you for saying yes, for building this life with me, for giving me Thomas and Catherine, and every single day of happiness I have had since the moment I met you." Olivia reached up to touch his face, this man who had saved her and then loved her and then built a life with her. "I should be thanking you. You gave me freedom and safety and love. You gave me everything I thought I could never have." "We gave those things to each other," Preston said, and kissed her as the sun set over the water, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. They went home that evening to their children and their house on the hill, to the life they had built together from courage and hope and love. Thomas was reading to Catherine in the sitting room, his 6-year-old voice serious as he worked through the words. and Catherine was listening with the same serious attention she brought to everything. Looking at her family, Olivia thought about that terrified girl standing on the porch of her father's ranch house, desperate to escape and not knowing how. She thought about the moment Preston had ridden into her life and changed everything with 4 simple words. "The lady will be coming with me now." Those words had been her salvation, the beginning of everything good in her life. But what made them truly powerful was everything that came after, the choice she made to trust him, the love they built together, the family they created. Preston had given her the chance to be free, but she had taken that chance and turned it into a life worth living. As she watched Preston settle onto the floor to listen to Thomas read, as she held Catherine in her arms and felt the warmth and safety of her home around her, Olivia knew that this was what happiness looked like. Not perfect, not without challenges or sorrows, but real and deep and true. She had been rescued by a cowboy on a dusty road in Oregon, but that was just the beginning of her story. The real story was the life they built together, the love that grew stronger with every passing year, the children who carried their legacy forward, and the knowledge that she was exactly where she was meant to be. Years later, when Thomas and Catherine were grown with families of their own, when Preston's hair had turned silver and Olivia's hands were marked with the passage of time, they would still walk together in the evenings, hand in hand, and tell each other the story of how they met. They would laugh about Preston's dramatic entrance, about Olivia's bravery, about all the twists and turns that had brought them to each other. And they would always end the story the same way, with Preston saying, "Best decision I ever made, stopping to help you that day." And Olivia would respond, "Best decision I ever made, accepting your help." Because that was the truth of it, simple and profound. They had each made a choice that summer day in 1875, a choice that led to love and family and a lifetime of happiness. It was not always easy, but it was always worth it. And as they grew old together on their ranch outside Portland, surrounded by children and grandchildren and the evidence of a life well lived, they knew they would make the same choice again 1,000 times over. The story that began with a desperate woman and a cowboy with a good heart had become a legacy of love that would echo through generations. Proof that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is accept help, and sometimes the most heroic thing you can do is offer it. Preston and Olivia Irving had both learned those lessons, and in learning them, they had found each other and built something beautiful that would outlast them both.